avenue of credit creation is the shadow banking system. This is in China, that uses warehouse receipts as collaterals for credit. It appears that some metal is missing or unaccounted for, and this after rumors have alleged that much of the metal has been rehypothecated as many as 10 times over. Now, hypothecation fundamentally means this. You have a bar, and the main commodities involved here are copper and iron, but there are others involved, including gold and silver. Now, hypothecation fundamentally means this. I have a slab of gold, say a kilo bar, and I have that stored in that warehouse, and the person with whom I'm storing it uses it as collateral with which banks issue them a letter of, I'm giving you a very simplified information here. I mean, the details may radically differ, but I'm giving you the principle of hypothecation. So that bar of gold is in the warehouse, but it's used as collateral for a letter of credit with some bank or other, which is fine if it ends there, but it doesn't end there. What happens is the person who has the possession of the gold, your gold, in that warehouse, then it takes out another letter of credit from another bank on the same bar of gold. And it's done 10 to 20 times. So there are, shall we say, banks who have issued huge amounts of money based on the collateral of 1 ounce of gold, or 1 kilo of gold, and that kilo of gold is, shall we so to speak, now has to be, when the collateral is unwound, and they find out that for the 20 letters of credit that have been centered on this 1 kilo of gold, there's only 1 kilo of gold. There's not 20 kilos of gold there. And it might even get worse than that they actually sell the gold in order to pocket the money for themselves. So this gold is just a bookkeeping entry. It doesn't fundamentally exist in the warehouse anymore. So Zero Hedge, as I mentioned, they've been talking about this for quite some time here. China scrambling, this is a headline from Zero Hedge, after discovering thousands of tons of rehypothecated copper and aluminum. There's another commodity involved. Copper is reacting to this story by dropping in price rather than rising. And this scenario was forecast by Goldman Sachs and agreed upon by Tyler Durden, who is the sort of, shall we say, the pen name of the people that put together Zero Hedge. Please understand that no matter what happens to the price of copper, lead, beans, zinc, even gold, the bottom line is that this very fast-growing seed is a very fast-growing seed that will grow into a credit contraction implosion that will leap from China's shores and engulf the entire credit-based world. And you have to understand that whenever you use the word credit, you also mean debt, because they're two sides of the same coin, so to speak. You know, every letter of credit means somebody is indebted to the same amount that the letter of credit has. So he goes on to say, I must confess that I'm a little bit confused with this, but let's think this through and see what we come up with. At first glance, my thought was that if the metals are not there for whatever reason, never there, hypothecated many times over, or even sold while other letters of credit exist with multiple owners, like I mentioned. There are multiple owners of this 1 kilo of gold, and the kilo of gold has itself been sold, and is no longer there. It's just a bookkeeping entry, which is, by the way, a common practice with the central banks. Oh yeah, they do that. I mean, they're allowed to do that by law. I mean, the Bank of International Settlements, they can lease out their gold, and yet they can book it on their books as if they had it in their possession, even though they've leased it out and they don't have it. Common sense says that if there is less supply than previously thought, then the clearing price should be higher. However, Goldman Sachs, and who would trust Goldman Sachs anyway? But Zero Hedge also argued that once the scam is uncovered, a rush to sell the contracts will overwhelm the demand to secure the physical product. This very well may be true, as owners of receipts, so to speak, will sell to receive whatever they can, while they can. The selling should only be over the short term, in my opinion, and a rise later in price as tight physical supply adjusts the clearing price later. I think the best way to explain their theory is that commodities, meaning paper contracts, face a gigantic margin call that can only be satisfied by selling to cover. In essence, the asset has already been borrowed against several times over, and the money does not exist to actually purchase the metal because it's already been bought and the money spent elsewhere. Again, this is a little bit counterintuitive. I don't think it's counterintuitive, but I will come back to counterintuitive shortly. Gold is where Goldman and Zero Hedge disagree. Goldman believes that gold will also go down just as other commodities, while Tyler Durden disagrees. Tyler Durden, Zero Hedge, believes that gold may actually rise and erase the losses of the last 2 years, in their words, and yet, in the case of gold, it may just be that even if China were to dump its physical, now, there's no way China is going to dump its physical. Because Jim Woody has already stated that China has already written off their $1.2 trillion of U.S. treasuries as totally worthless. And why have they done that? Because they will determine the price when the price of gold is reset, and they've accumulated 15,000 to 20,000 tons of gold. So if you divide that into $1.2 trillion, I can't do the math myself, but just do yourself. Take 20,000 tons and divide it into $1.2 trillion. And that's your price of gold. Yeah, that's an exercise for you to do. Because they've already stated when this trade settlement system based on gold and silver is implemented, the price of gold will be $6,000 an ounce and the price of silver $200 to $250 an ounce. And there's no way that China, that's why it was the Chinese fundamentally were the main players in bringing the price of silver and gold down over the past 2 years for the simple purpose of accumulating the physical. They're using the paper contracts on the paper markets to drive the price down because they have a lot of money to play with, and they can do that because, a contract of gold is 100 ounces of gold. But you don't pay a full price when you purchase the future contract. You don't pay the full price. You pay maybe 10 or 15%. So if you have all these foreign reserves, and they have, 2 trillion in foreign reserves, of which 1.2 trillion is U.S. treasuries, They have unlimited money, so they can purchase, literally hundreds of contracts, which they don't purchase to buy, they purchase to sell, and that drives the price down. And then what they do with their other hand is they use the other money that they have to take possession of the gold at the cheaper price. And that's how they've accumulated these literally 15 to 20,000 tons over the past 2 years. Yeah? And it's the Chinese that have been doing it. So anyway, to carry on with this particular sentence, which is zero hedge, and yet in the case of gold, it may just be that even if China were to dump its physical to some willing third-party buyer, its inevitable cover of futures hedges, i.e. buying gold in the paper market, may not only offset the physical selling, but send the price of gold back to levels seen at the end of 2012, when the gold letters of credit really took off in earnest. In other words, from a purely mechanistic standpoint, the unwind of China's shadow banking system, while negative for all non-precious metal-based commodities, may be just the gift that all those patient gold and silver investors have been waiting for. And then Bill Holter goes on to say, this of course excludes the impact of what the bursting of the Chinese credit bubble would do to faith in the globalized, debt-driven status quo. Add that into the picture and the future demand for gold and silver suddenly gets really very interesting. Okay, let me break this. This is Bill Holder writing here. Okay, let me break this down a little. First, I do not think that China, under any circumstances, just re-emphasizing what I just said, will be selling any physical gold. No way. They're not going to do that. And also to emphasize and underline this, Jim Woody has an eyewitness account of an individual who went into the vaults beneath the Kremlin and saw with his own eyes the amount of bullion they've stored there. And it amounts to well over 20,000 tons. And you notice China and Russia are kind of sort of getting together pretty closely over the past few months, with this deals that they've been cutting. And there's an old saying, which is probably pretty true: he who has the gold makes the rules. I believe that the transfer from west to east of gold bullion over the last few years was a national decision that China made at the very top levels. It's a national program that will not be altered or reversed, because they've been encouraging their citizens to buy gold. Because remember, they don't have a social security system there. They don't have that. They don't have a welfare state. And so they've been encouraging the citizens. I mean, they've been advertising on their media, suggesting very strongly to their citizens in China to buy gold and silver, which they have been doing. That said, we do know that gold has dropped over the last 2 years, and I explained that